Ever since I was a child, I was told that my sister and I were two sides of the same coin. People said we looked alike, spoke alike, even laughed alike, but behind the closed doors of our home, it was obvious we were nothing alike. Where I was the quiet, diligent type who believed in hard work, she thrived on shortcuts, charm, and competition. To her, life was a constant game of one-upmanship, and the only way she felt good about herself was if she stood on top of me. I grew up learning to live with it. In school, she copied my homework and then bragged to our parents when she scored high. At family gatherings, she would retell my stories as if they were her own, adding flair so that she became the hero and I the background character. Most people thought it was harmless sibling rivalry, but I always felt the sting. Still, I told myself, it doesn't matter who shines at home. What matters is who proves themselves in the real world. That became my silent mantra as I worked through college. While others partied, I buried myself in internships, late-night projects, and endless networking events. I wasn't just looking for any job. I had my eye on one dream opportunity. A management trainee position at a rising tech company whose CEO was known for mentoring young talent personally. It wasn't just about the paycheck. It was about growth, stability, and finally proving that I had built something for myself on my own merit. My sister, on the other hand, had no such discipline. She drifted from hobby to hobby, job to job, never holding on to anything for long. But what she lacked in commitment, she made up for in charisma. She had this uncanny ability to charm people into believing she was more capable than she really was. Teachers, family friends, even distant relatives always seemed to fall for her act. I didn't envy her. But I did resent how easily she could claim the spotlight while I spent years earning every scrap of recognition. When I got the email about being shortlisted for that dream position, I cried. Not out of weakness, but relief. Every all-nighter, every moment I doubted myself, it all led here. My professors had recommended me, my past internship supervisors had vouched for me, and my portfolio spoke for itself. For the first time, I felt the universe was acknowledging my quiet persistence. I told my parents with trembling hands, expecting a moment of pride, maybe even a hug. But before the words fully left my mouth, my sister leaned in with that familiar smirk, as if my achievement was somehow hers to dissect. I could already feel the storm brewing in her eyes, the kind of storm that always came when she realized I was ahead of her. Back then, I didn't know just how far she was willing to go to keep me from reaching that dream. All I knew was that after years of being overshadowed, my chance to finally shine was within reach, and I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me. The first sign that something was wrong came so quietly, I almost missed it. I had been waiting anxiously for the official interview schedule from the company. I checked my inbox every hour, refreshing until my eyes blurred. Days passed and nothing came. At first, I chalked it up to nerves or maybe a delay in the process. But deep down, I felt a creeping unease, like something had been tampered with. One evening, as I walked past my sister's room, I caught a glimpse of her laptop screen. She quickly slammed it shut, but not before I recognized the company's logo glowing back at me. My heart stopped. At first, I thought maybe she was just curious, maybe browsing their website. But the smug little curl of her lips told me it was more than that. The truth came out 2 days later, over dinner. With a sparkle in her eye, she announced, "So I've been called in for an interview with company name." My fork clattered against the plate. I sat frozen, the room spinning around me. How could she possibly have an interview with the same company, the exact position I had worked for years to get, when I hadn't even received a response? She carried on like it was nothing. She described the role, the responsibilities, even quoted parts of the email as if she were reciting lines she had rehearsed. That's when it hit me. She must have intercepted the email meant for me. Our home computers shared the same Wi-Fi, and we often used the family printer. She knew my passwords from years ago when we shared devices. I had never thought to change them, because who would expect their own sister to go that far? When I confronted her privately, she didn't even flinch. She leaned back against her chair, arms crossed, and said, "Well, you've always had your nose in books. You think the world owes you just because you work hard. But life doesn't reward effort. It rewards who can grab the opportunity first." Her words stung more than a slap. She wasn't even denying it. She was proud. What broke me more was my parents' reaction. Instead of questioning her sudden luck, they showered her with praise. "Finally, you're being serious about your future," my father said, beaming at her. My mother added, "See? Maybe competition between sisters is healthy. It pushes you both to do better." I sat there in silence, a lump in my throat, wondering if they even noticed how pale I had turned, how my hands trembled beneath the table. For years, I had carried the weight of being the responsible one, the dependable one, and yet here was my sister, stealing the one thing that mattered most to me, and no one even suspected foul play. They all saw her as ambitious, determined, maybe even inspiring. That night, I shut myself in my room and cried until my pillow was damp. I wasn't just hurt, I was betrayed in the deepest sense. It wasn't a stranger who had stabbed me in the back. It was my own sister, the person I had grown up sharing toys, secrets, and childhood dreams with. And as much as it tore me apart, I realized one thing with crystal clarity. She wasn't finished yet. This was only the beginning of her plan to erase me and claim my future as her own. The day of her interview felt like a funeral for my dreams. She strutted out of the house in a tailored suit she had borrowed from my closet without asking, her hair perfectly styled, her lips painted with that smug smile she wore whenever she thought she had won. I stayed behind, staring at the empty chair where I had imagined myself preparing for that very moment. Every detail she flaunted, her clothes, her polished resume filled with lines stolen from my portfolio, her fake confidence, felt like another nail being hammered into my chest. When she returned, she didn't even bother to hide her arrogance. She tossed her bag onto the couch, kicked off her heels, and announced loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, "They loved me. I'm pretty sure the job is mine." She exaggerated every detail, talking about how the CEO laughed at her jokes, how the panel was impressed by her insights I knew came straight from the projects I had worked on during my internships. At dinner that night, she turned the table into her stage. "You all should have seen it," she gushed. "The CEO said I was exactly what they're looking for. I bet they'll make me an offer soon." My parents' faces lit up as if she had just secured a place in heaven. "We're so proud of you," my father said, patting her on the back. My mother added, "Finally, your hard work is paying off." Hard work? I nearly choked on my food. She hadn't worked a single late night, hadn't sacrificed weekends, hadn't poured her soul into research or building a portfolio. That was me. Every achievement she boasted about came from my sweat and sleepless nights. And yet my parents sat there blind to the truth, showering her with the approval I had longed for all my life. I excused myself from the table before my emotions spilled over, but she wasn't done yet. As I walked away, she called after me, her voice dripping with venomous sweetness. "Don't worry, sis. Not everyone's cut out for big opportunities. Some people are just better as background characters." The laughter that followed was the cruelest sound I'd ever heard. That night, I didn't cry. I couldn't. The tears had burned away, replaced by something sharper, heavier, more dangerous. Rage pulsed through my veins, hot and steady. I replayed every moment. Her smug smile, my parents' blind praise, her shameless theft. Each memory hardened me. For years, I had let her walk over me, convincing myself it wasn't worth the fight. But this was different. She hadn't just stolen recognition. She had stolen my future, my dream job, my proof to the world that I was capable, worthy, more than just her shadow. As I sat in the dark of my room, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop, a strange calm settled over me. She thought she had won. She thought she had buried me beneath her lies, but she had underestimated the one thing she could never steal, my resolve. It was time to stop being the quiet sister, the one who endured in silence. It was time to rise, to fight back, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. In that moment, with my hands clenched into fists and my heart beating like a war drum, I whispered to myself, "It's payback time." From that night onward, I stopped wasting energy on tears. My sister's arrogance was fuel enough to keep me awake, sharp, and focused. She paraded around the house like she was already the company's rising star, dropping little hints about how she'd networked with the CEO or impressed the panel. Every word dripped with false pride. But instead of confronting her, I learned to smile quietly, nodding as though I had already accepted defeat. Inside, though, my mind was moving like a chessboard, plotting, calculating, preparing. The first thing I did was gather proof. Every project she claimed as her own was stored on my laptop and backed up in cloud folders. Reports, research notes, internship letters, even emails from supervisors. Each document bore my name, my timestamp, my effort. I printed copies, organized them into neat folders, and made sure I had both digital and physical records. If she thought she could erase my existence with charm, she was about to learn that paper trails don't lie. Next, I updated my portfolio, not with flashy exaggerations, but with concrete achievements. While she spent evenings scrolling through social media, I polished case studies, formatted designs, and even included recommendation letters from professors who knew my character as well as my work ethic. With every page I compiled, I felt my confidence returning, stronger and steadier. But the boldest step came when I decided to bypass the charade and contact the company directly. I drafted a professional yet heartfelt email to the CEO, explaining my background, my passion for their vision, and most importantly, attaching proof of my actual contributions. I didn't accuse my sister directly. I didn't need to. Honesty would speak louder than bitterness. The tone of the email was respectful, but between the lines it carried the weight of truth. When I hit send, a strange calm washed over me. For the first time in weeks, I slept without nightmares. My sister still floated around the house like a queen, mocking me with subtle jabs. "Guess I'll be the breadwinner soon," or "Maybe I'll put in a good word for you once I'm in." I didn't bite. I let her believe she was untouchable, that I was the defeated shadow trailing behind her. What she didn't know, and what made my silence all the more powerful, was that I had already planted the seeds of her downfall. The CEO had a reputation for valuing integrity above all else. Stories circulated online of how he personally mentored employees who demonstrated grit and honesty, while swiftly cutting ties with those who built success on lies. It wasn't about charm or empty confidence. It was about merit. And in that game, she didn't stand a chance. The day finally came when the company scheduled a follow-up meeting. My sister was glowing with triumph as she prepared, convinced this was the moment they would officially hand her the offer letter. What she didn't know was that they had asked me to attend as well. As we stood side by side, both heading toward the same destination, I caught her eye. She smirked as if to say, "Don't embarrass yourself." But for once, I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't angry either. I was calm, collected, and ready, because deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't just an interview anymore. It was Judgment Day. The office lobby buzzed with quiet energy as we arrived side by side. My sister strutted in like she owned the place, her heels clicking against the polished floor, each step echoing her confidence. She glanced at me and whispered, "Hope you brought tissues. Watching me win might make you cry." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. We were ushered into a sleek conference room where the CEO himself sat at the head of a long table, flanked by two senior executives. His reputation preceded him, calm, sharp-eyed, impossible to fool. My sister immediately launched into her performance, flashing her brightest smile, her voice sugary with charm as she began recounting her journey. "I've always been passionate about innovation," she gushed, gesturing dramatically with her hands. I worked tirelessly on case studies and projects that really prepared me for this role. The CEO listened politely, but I noticed how his expression didn't change. He nodded occasionally, but his eyes kept flicking toward me as if he were waiting. Finally, he turned. "And you," he said, his voice steady, "why do you believe you're the right fit for this position?" My heart pounded, but I had come prepared. Instead of performing, I opened my folder. Because this isn't just a career move for me, it's the result of years of consistent work. Every project I've done, every internship, every recommendation has led me here. I laid out my portfolio. Page after page, reports with my name and timestamp. Letters from professors, documented case studies. The executives leaned forward, scanning the evidence. My sister's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly covered it with a laugh. "Oh, come on," she said, her tone light but strained. "We worked on so many things together growing up. Sometimes it's hard to remember who did what, right?" The CEO's eyes sharpened. "Interesting. Then perhaps you can both explain this." He slid a printout across the table, a case study I had written during my internship. "My name was clearly stamped on the original submission. Which one of you authored this?" he asked. My sister opened her mouth first. "That was mine, of course." No," I interrupted calmly, placing the matching document from my folder on the table. "This is the original. Submitted on date, verified by my supervisor. I can provide email correspondence if needed." Silence fell over the room. The executives exchanged looks. My sister's face flushed red as she stammered, "Well, I contributed ideas." The CEO leaned back in his chair, studying her like a teacher catching a student in a lie. "Integrity is non-negotiable here," he said firmly. "We value truth, not borrowed glory. It's clear who the rightful candidate is." Then, with deliberate clarity, he turned to me. "Congratulations. The position is yours!" The words hit like a lightning strike. Not shocking, but electrifying. My chest swelled with vindication. All those sleepless nights, all that quiet suffering, it had all been worth it. Across the table, my sister sat frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. The arrogance that once fueled her had drained away, leaving only humiliation. She didn't dare look at me. For the first time in her life, she was powerless. And for the first time in mine, I stood tall. Not as her shadow, not as her victim, but as the person I was always meant to be. The car ride home was silent. My sister, usually quick with cutting remarks, stared out the window, her jaw clenched so tightly I thought her teeth might crack. I didn't say a word either. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth had already spoken for me, louder than anything I could have said. When we walked through the front door, my parents were waiting eagerly, expecting to celebrate her victory. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Finally, I spoke. "The CEO offered me the position," I said, my voice calm but steady. My father's smile faltered. My mother blinked, confusion clouding her face. My sister snapped then. "It wasn't fair. She only got it because she made me look bad." Her voice cracked with desperation, but the more she ranted, the clearer it became that she had been caught. I placed my folder on the table and slid it toward my parents. "This is my work," the same work she tried to claim as her own. The CEO saw through the lies. The room grew heavy. My father cleared his throat, his expression shifting from disbelief to shame. My mother lowered her gaze, as if she could no longer look me in the eyes. For years, they had celebrated my sister's shortcuts, blinded by her charisma, while my quiet sacrifices went unnoticed. Now, the truth lay bare before them, undeniable. As for my sister, her downfall was swift. She avoided me, retreating into her room for days. When she did emerge, it was only to mutter bitter comments under her breath. Her arrogance had shattered, leaving behind only jealousy and regret. She had gambled everything on deception, and she had lost, publicly, humiliatingly. Meanwhile, I stepped into my new role with a mix of pride and humility. Walking into the company's headquarters as an employee, not just a candidate, felt surreal. The CEO greeted me personally on my first day, reminding me, "Talent matters, but character matters more." Those words etched themselves into my heart, a reminder that integrity would always be my greatest strength. It wasn't just about the job anymore. This was bigger than a paycheck or a title. I had earned something my sister could never steal: respect. From my colleagues, from my mentors, and most importantly, from myself. For the first time, I looked in the mirror and saw not the quiet sister, not the background character, but someone strong enough to stand her ground and claim her place in the world. At home, things were never quite the same. My parents treated me differently, not with over-the-top praise, but with a quiet acknowledgement that carried more weight than words. My sister, though, remained distant, her pride too bruised to admit defeat. Maybe one day she'll learn from her mistakes, but that's her journey, not mine. As for me, I don't dwell on the betrayal anymore. I carry it as a reminder of what I overcame, a scar that proves I survived the storm. And whenever doubt creeps in, I think back to that moment in the conference room when the truth finally silenced the lies. And the CEO's words rang clear. The position is yours. That was the day I didn't just win a job, I won myself back.